hit the button. It's red, and red is good, right? Okay. All right. We're here for 45 modules in 45 minutes. Hopefully I can get through this before lunch starts pouring in here. My name is John Rearick. I work at Iowa State University. I do web development there, of course, and Drupal. And I'm an organizer for the Drupal Corn Camp in Iowa. You can find me on Twitter @jrearick, and babas.com is my website if you're interested in weird blog posts. The source of this list of 45 modules is from the Drupal.org projects page. So in this list, I just went to the filters here and I selected Drupal 8 compatibility, and it's sorted by most installed. A little caveat about this is that it's not the most popular in Drupal 8. It's the most popular of all Drupal modules, all versions of Drupal core. So yeah, it'll be a little weird for a couple of these modules here. So format. This is an example slide. Is that counting? Okay, it's not on my presenter notes. So this is example module. This is not really in the 45 list, so that's why we're starting at number 0 on the upper left side. We got the name of the module at the top there. There's a little exclamation point there if there is no full release of the module yet. So that is a common problem in Drupal 8 right now, is people are not quite getting full releases out there, even though they're widely used. I have a little short description here, a little icon. This is the actual icon for the example module. There's the URL here at the bottom for that, and a nice, helpful 60-second counter GIF in the corner, so that we know how much time we have left to talk about each individual module. And they will auto-advance, so I might start talking over into the next module, like just happened with token. So let's get started. The most popular module on the list is token. Drupal 8 does provide some basic token functionality out of the box in core, but the token module is still useful for things like this token selecting UI and being able to browse tokens from fields in your node. So this is very useful for other modules that we'll talk about later. This allows you to replace little variables and strings. So like in a view, if you want to replace the string dynamically when you load up the view, or in path auto, you have the path based on the title of the node. So this is really an amazing module. Thanks, Dave. CTools. This is incredibly popular in Drupal 7 because it was a requirement of views. And now that views is in core, we don't need CTools in Drupal 8. But it's still there in Drupal 8, which was kind of surprising. And it's more of an API module for developers, so if you have a module that says it needs CTools, then you'll install it. It's not really anything you need to go out and get just to have CTools to have CTools. Our big Drupal 8 project at Iowa State that I'm working on, I found that, it's installed on there. We must have something that depends on it. So I'm not sure what that is. So that's why it's so popular here, is because it's like on every single Drupal 7 site. I wish the countdown showed on my presenter notes. All right, there we go. Admin toolbar is, it makes your admin menu a little bit more accessible. Without this, you'd have to go click structure, and then click on content types, and then click on page, and then several clicks, several pages to get to where you want to go. With admin toolbar, it's a nice little drop down. You can go straight to where you want to go. And I use this a lot in Drupal 7 and in Drupal 8 when I'm administrating sites. Let's see here if I can skip to the next slide. Here we go. Path auto. I'm going to try and speed it up a little bit so that we can get out of here quicker than 45 minutes, right? Path auto. This is a really good place where token is used. The path auto module will automatically generate a URL or path alias for your nodes. So when you configure it, you can set a default pattern for your content type. So say if you have a blog, and instead of every blog post being at node/123, you can have your blog posts at blog/2019- whatever your pub date /title. And that is really great for search engine optimization, usability, so you can kind of see, if you just take out parts, you can maybe have a view there that lists all the 2019 blog posts. So path auto is used on a lot. Meta tag is very nice. It's basically required for search engine optimization. And the big thing is, with this module, there's a module within this module. I forget what you call those. I don't want to call them sub-modules because that's a Git thing. One for what's called Open Graph. And when you have that installed and configured, you can use tokens again to tell it what images Facebook should pick up when you share that link, or what description should be provided when you share it on Twitter, or what the canonical URL is for something. It's really nice to have and easy to set up. You can set it up so that it's like on a per content type basis, or even on a per node basis that you can override the defaults on a node. Entity reference revisions. This is popular because of paragraphs module, which we'll get to soon. For the most part, I guess you don't install this unless you find a need for it, which is usually a dependency. What entity reference revisions does is it helps, this is very hard to explain, it helps keep track of the correct revision of stuff when you have an entity reference. So you have one node that references, say, a people profile, and each of these things can have different revisions or versions, and being able to make sure that the right revision is displayed with your node can be complicated. So this kind of helps fill that gap, I guess. And paragraphs. That's the reason why we have entity revisions module, because paragraphs, instead of, say, using your regular WYSIWYG where people can put anything in and format things however they want and make everything Comic Sans and red and whatever, and not be able to bring in things like, a people profile picture, or, a block, or whatever. You can have paragraphs, which allows you, it's kind of like pre-layout builder sort of way of arranging your fields and referencing other content within a node. So that could be a whole presentation on its own on how to set up paragraphs. Field group. This is really nice to be able to customize, say, like your node forms. So when you're entering in the fields for your content type page or whatever, if you have a lot of fields, field group allows you to break down the form into digestible bits. So you're probably familiar with, in HTML, there's a field group tag that you can separate things out into groups. Here it takes it a little bit further. You can define groups as horizontal or vertical tabs. So you can tab through different parts of the form, or you can define your own wrappers. You can do accordions, which are little things. You click one thing and it reveals the next thing and stuff like that. It's It's really nice for usability and simplifying forms for your users who are making content, instead of just having one big list of form fields. Webform. This has been rebuilt in Drupal 8, and it's intended to gather data. So it's there can be a difference between content and, like a node or an entity or whatever, and Webform, which stores the data in a little bit more accessible way on the back end. When you're saying doing a node or something, you probably have a limited number of fields, and that works just fine for performance reasons. But with Webform, it's designed to handle lots and lots and lots of fields. So say you're talking about making a survey, or maybe integrating with a different system to bring in data. This is the solution to do that. And there's a lot of other fields and stuff that you can put in that. Redirect module. This is really nice for making sure that your content is only available on one URL. So like, you have node/123, that works and displays your page. But it's also at /about. So you can go to either one and it'll display the content. We don't really want to do that. We want node123 to take you to /about, so that there's only one place that you can find that page. This is really good at directing case-insensitive stuff. And it also has a feature to be able to see how many different things are being redirected. So you can define a redirect for a page. Say if you have like a campaign, a marketing campaign that you want a nice simple URL, /join today goes to /forms/ campaign123/ join or whatever. So it will help you simplify URLs. Google Analytics. How many people use Google Analytics? Like everybody, yeah. Yeah, you don't have to copy paste the code and stuff. You can install this module and configure it as you need. I think it has support for stuff like AdWords and all that kind of stuff, and goals and whatnot. We don't use Google Analytics myself, or at Iowa State we use Piwik, which is our own locally hosted analytics platform. That's kind of like Google Analytics, but we control the data. So I don't know too much about Google Analytics, but if you use Google Analytics, this is the module for that. Video embed field is really nice. There's been a lot of talk and development put towards media and media management in Drupal, which is really awesome when you have tons of media across everywhere. This is for the other use case. This is for simple sites. You don't want to go through managing a huge catalog of media. You just want to be able to let your users embed a video. And that is very simple. You install it, configure it, and in 5 minutes, users can put videos in their WYSIWYG. They can have a field that defines a video for a content type, and it's pretty straightforward. I don't know if it has any Drupal 8 media integrations or anything. I haven't looked into that yet, but it'd be cool if you could use this and then graduate to the full media library if you wanted to. CAPTCHA. Everybody knows about these little squiggly lines, or entering in the address that Google's trying to figure out how to map the world. CAPTCHA is mainly an API module that allows other CAPTCHA systems to work. So you're going to see this as a dependency for things like reCAPTCHA, which is Google's CAPTCHA system. So if you want to protect forms and you want to get it so that you don't get quite as much spam on, say, your web form or your public forms, this is a good module to get started on. I got water for a reason. The devel module. I would suggest not having this enabled or installed on production, but it tends to sneak out there a lot and get in the accounts. But the devel module is a lot of helper stuff for when you're actually developing code for a site. So it gives you access to things like Kint, which is a way to print variables nicely on your on the browser window. It can integrate with your profiler. There's another module integrated with it called Devel Generate, which you can use to generate a bunch of content to see how things work when you have 1,000 of these things. It's pretty useful for basic development and troubleshooting things on your mobile. Inline entity form. This is still kind of in beta, and I haven't seen much development on it lately. But it's heavily used in Drupal Commerce. This allows you to, if you have like an entity reference on a node, say you have a blog post that references a person profile or something, which is a separate content type, you can be able to edit that person profile within that blog post node form. So, oh, hey, my email address changed, I better change that. And you can change it right there and not have to stop what you're doing, go back to the other node, change the stuff, come back, and then continue where you left off. So it's a little bit of a good usability thing. Entity browser. Yeah. So I'm not very well versed in the media stuff. But there was a very big push to be able to have a way to manage all the different kinds of stuff on your site, to be able to select different entities on your site. So an entity could even be like a video or an image or an entire node or whatever. This was a system, or is a system, where, say, like, if you have entity embed, you can use that to select which entity you would want to reference. So you can get like a preview of the image or whatever, or you can get a preview of the video so that you know which thing you're selecting, as opposed to just having an autocomplete or just looking at titles. Search API. Drupal core does have a search function built in, but it's just a database search, it's fine for small sites. But when you start getting larger sites and you want to be able to, say, use facets to drill things down, or you have tons of content that needs to be a little bit more professional and useful when you have tons of content, Search API module is what you'd use to integrate search on Drupal with something like Apache Solr. I think it probably has Elasticsearch support. So there's other modules that implement Search API in order to provide search services for your website. So this is a really good starting point for advanced searches. Entity API. This was really popular in Drupal 7, which is why it's still very popular on the list. In Drupal 8, most of the stuff that was in Entity API module is now in core. But I think the goal for the Drupal 8 version of this module is more of a proving ground, playground for other entity developments that they want to see put in core. That's not all I know about that in Drupal 8 fashion. Mail system provides an administrative UI and API for managing mail backends. So when you're sending email with Drupal, say you have maybe like a newsletter module or something that you want to send emails to, this module kind of helps you set up the configuration for that stuff. So like, what SMTP server do you need to send it to, or what sort of emails are you going to send? Definitely something to look into if you're going to be sending emails from your site. And there's a few other mail modules that I think we're going to cover later on that gets into a little bit more details. So I mentioned CAPTCHA before. ReCAPTCHA is one type of CAPTCHA that you can use, and it's very popular because it's free, easy to use, and pretty effective. So yeah, this one is like, which ones are hamburgers? You choose which one's a hamburger. This allows you, this module makes it so that as an administrator you can go in and put in your API key for your ReCAPTCHA account and things will just work. So it's really straightforward. Crop API. This is pretty nice when you're working with images. So this is just an API module. It does not actually offer any UI to the user. So I don't know if we'll get into any cropping modules later, but they would require this. So if you're, say you have like, a home page block that has an image that's this aspect ratio or whatever, you're going to want a way for them to be able to crop it on the site and not, make sure that they get what they're looking for, as opposed to like cutting somebody's head off or whatever. It's very nice to be able to have people select where they want the crop to happen. Simple XML sitemap. This is to help your Google browser or the Google bot crawl your site. It can kind of take hints from this supposed standard of XML sitemap. And what this does is it goes through and it provides a compliant sitemap of your site based on content types, categories, menus, to help. I'm sure there's some configuration in here that allows you to define a few things. But this is the most simple, least fiddly thing, first step to making a good sitemap for SEO. It's probably just a good idea to install it, make sure it looks good, and it should help a little bit on that. Embed. This is a framework module, I guess. So if there's other things that might require it, it doesn't provide things out of the box for the user. But what this does is it makes it a way to be able to embed things into the Drupal 8 WYSIWYG CK editor. So say, for example, maybe you want to embed a Twitter card or a Facebook thing or something from Getty Images. You can use this module to help develop a module that will allow you to do that. And there's probably some in contrib space that would do some popular ones. Libraries API. This isn't much of a thing in Drupal 8 now because most of the basic functionality is in core. But I think there is a Drupal 8 version that has a little bit more extensions to it to do some special things that I really am not aware of. But what Libraries API does is it helps integrate external, say, JavaScript libraries into your site so that Drupal knows about these things. So for example, if you have a particular module that requires some external JavaScript library like ColorBox or something, you would put the library in a certain folder and the library's API, and that module will figure out how to load it up for you. Twig Tweak. Twig is the templating engine in Drupal 8. So that's kind of the language you use to define templates and themes and all that stuff. And with Twig Tweak, it extends some of the functions that you can use within Twig that help improve your development experience. I'm not a front-ender, so I'm not very familiar with what is and isn't available in Twig and what Twig Tweak brings to the plate. But if you're having a hard time trying to find the right function or something, maybe Twig Tweak has something that you could use to make things a little easier for you. Entity Embed. So this one is the WYSIWYG version of that entity module. So you can embed entities into your CK editor. So if you want to embed within the CK editor, WYSIWYG, whatever, you can embed media, you can embed, blocks, anything that is considered an entity, a taxonomy term, a user, you can embed that in the middle of your WYSIWYG. Better exposed filters. This is really nice. Sometimes when exposing filters in views, so being able to select what thing to filter a view by, the interface for it is in core is not necessarily the most intuitive. Like for example, sometimes you might want to expose a filter and be able to select multiple values of a select list or something. And core has that weird field where you have to hold down like the Option or the Apple key in order to select multiple values. That's way not intuitive. But with better exposed filters, you can configure it to be, say, checkboxes or radio buttons or other things. So I find that when the UI for a view filter is lacking, better exposed filters will help me out with that. Link it. This is a WYSIWYG button that makes it easy to link to other pages within your site. So you click on the Link It button. It works just like a regular link button, except you can start typing in the page title, and it will find it and link it for you. It's easy. You don't have to go open up another tab, go find where that page is, copy, paste. You can just say, I just want the About page there, so I'll just type in About, and there it is. Honeypot. So, it's kind of like a CAPTCHA module. You can, except this is not user-facing, right? What this does is it adds a field to your form that's hidden by CSS, so that when a regular user comes in with a regular browser and everything, sees the form, they don't see that field. But when a bot comes in, it doesn't know, it's not reading the CSS. It will see that field and try to put something in it. So if you say, make this hidden field called website or email address, it'll put something in there. And then if it sees that something's in that field, it'll reject the submission, because it's not 100%. It's pretty good for low volume sites, but once somebody actually wants to start gaming that particular page, then it kind of fails. And that's when you should probably look at CAPTCHA or other spam mitigation technologies. Configuration Update Manager. I forget what this is all about. Oh yeah, this is kind of a module that helps config split do its thing. This allows I think it has an API and minimal UI to be able to manage configuration updates. So I think, what is this? Yeah, it's helpful for configuration management. I don't think I've actually used it yet, even though I'm giving a talk about configuration management tomorrow, so I should look into that a little bit better. IMCE. This is something that's been around forever. I don't think it's Drupal specific, but this kind of opens a file system to your users to be able to manage files on your site. One of the things, this might be a good use case for your site, but I think mostly we're getting away from allowing users to manage files and folders manually because it tends to get messy and unknown what's going on. But if you really want to have your content editors to be able to upload files to random directories or do that stuff and select those files to be put into your WYSIWYG, IMCE, I guess, is the way to go. Yeah, I don't use it. Address. This is a pretty nice module. There's a caveat here. It requires Composer in order to install. So if you're just doing a regular, copy the module to the modules directory thing, you won't be able to get the dependencies you need. So if you're using Composer, you can get address module very nicely. What this does is it gives you a field type called address, and it's configurable, and a lot of thought has been put into it to be able to take in global addresses. So it does things like providing country, state, or province sort of things. You can limit the list to whatever, and it integrates with other things in order to validate addresses. So if you have a database of address validator service, you can use that with this. D8 Editor Advanced Link. This is pretty simple. In the core Drupal 8 WYSIWYG, the link field is very bare. It's just the URL, right? It doesn't allow you to change things like CSS classes, put an ID on it, do whatever, rel equals whatever, it's very basic. And that's good for 90% of the cases. But if you have advanced editors who know how to do things or whatever, the Editor Advanced Link opens up those fields in your WYSIWYG, so you can do the rel equals no follow or whatever advanced links you need to do. Dropdown JS. This is one of those modules that uses a JavaScript library. So Dropdown JS allows you to drag and drop a file onto your page or onto the field and be able to see them in a little bit more intuitive way than just a file selector box. I don't think it has integration with CK Editor. I'm not sure. That'd be something to look into. Because I would love to be able to just drag a file into the editor and make it work, but I haven't seen that yet. Use infinite scroll. This is pretty neat. If you're familiar with the Twitter site and you scroll down through all the news feed, it keeps going forever, right? It keeps loading more and more and more. On the back end, it's not giving you every single tweet in the world loaded when you go to that page. It's kind of like a little Ajax thing that as you scroll down, it loads more. You scroll down, it loads more. Views infinite scroll kind of brings that functionality into views so that you can keep scrolling and keep seeing more content as you scroll down. Or you can click on the load more button. Backup and migrate. This is very popular in Drupal 7. It's a module that helps you back up and migrate your Drupal site. I think it also has, I don't know if Node Scroll is still a thing with young people. No, it's dead now? Okay. But backup and migrate, you can go get a database dump out of your Drupal site. You can download your code in a nice compressed format. And I think it has APIs where you can be able to like do it with Drush or whatever and automate your backups, site backups with this module. Lazy or be lazy? I don't know how to pronounce it. Be lazy, I think, with the capitalization in the paragraph. It's a lazy loader. So this is like if you have a long page with lots of images in it, and people, don't necessarily scroll down all the way. You don't have to spend the time sending the image when the image is off screen. So as you scroll down, it will, dynamically load up the image as you scroll down. I've never really had a reason to have this, but if you tend to have long pages with lots of media on it, this might be something to look into. ColorBox is another little JavaScript library integration thing. This is a field formatter for image fields, I think. I've never used it because slideshows. It's a little jQuery plugin that, say if you have multiple images in an image field, you can set the ColorBox to set up little modal things so that you can, it brings the image out to a nice bigger size, and you can click through the slideshow of images that are there. Add minimal admin toolbar. So this is kind of like the admin toolbar, except it's based on the add minimal theme. There's a theme called add minimal that is supposed to be designed as an alternative theme for administrating Drupal. And it tries to be as minimalistic as possible. So this is an alternative to admin menu toolbar, which we talked about earlier. Display suite. This is super popular in Drupal 7 land. But now as we have layout builder in core, and we have layout API that was in core even earlier, display suite is not used for as much stuff in Drupal 8 anymore. It still has uses in Drupal 8. But being not a front-end person, I'm not sure exactly what the different things it can do. I know we have it in our installation, so mostly it's for defining layouts and being able to say, I want different ways of displaying this content. So say if you wanted to display this way on a view, or this way in a search result, and this way on the page, and this way on, I don't know, whatever. SMTP authentication support. So by default, Drupal, when you send an email using Drupal, it'll use, all the way in the back end, it will use the PHP mail function, which uses your local SMTP, whatever, to send stuff. That's not usually a good idea because emails are a fickle thing, and with all the spam blocking and gray and white and black listing and all that stuff, it's very hard to keep that up to date. So usually organizations will outsource it to like Google or to MailChimp or Mandrill or some other mail delivery service. And SMTP authentication support allows you to authenticate to services like that in order to send email. Config filter. There is a talk about this tomorrow, I think. Config filter allows you to define or filter configuration when you import it. So, for example, if you have different environments and you need, say, like configuration could be an API key for a service, say like for reCAPTCHA, that needs an API key. You don't necessarily want to use that same bit of configuration across all your sites, or on your dev, on your stage and stuff. Otherwise, you'll end up, running into rate limits or getting bad statistics from Google or whatever. Config filter allows you to alter the configuration when you import it into, say, production, and you can get a different API key that way. Slip carousel. A lot of people like those sliding, rotating image carousel things. I have my opinion on those, and they're not a good thing, but people still want them. Slip carousel is kind of a solution for that. Slick is, I think, a JavaScript library that does that. Supposedly it's supposed to be a little bit more accessible or something, but it's usually not a good idea. But people still want them. Panels, again, kind of like with Display Suite. I think panels is a way to be able to put content in different layouts. So you can even have like a panel page that brought in stuff from different places. And yeah, with Layout Builder, it's not as much of a thing anymore. So I'm not sure. Yeah, it's more of an API thing in Drupal 8. But yeah, totally, really super useful in Drupal 7. Block class. This is I don't know. Maybe this needs to be in core. I don't know. But being able to define CSS classes on a block. When you have a designer, who's trying to define a theme and a scheme for how things look, being able to add a CSS class to different blocks and block types is essential. And to be able to have that fit in, say, with like Bootstrap or whatever layout library you have. Drupal doesn't necessarily give you the right CSS classes. So here you can define whatever CSS classes you want onto a block. And it's awesome. It makes it easier to develop stuff. Wait, was that 45? Wow, okay. Whew, only 7,130 modules left to go. So yeah, that was a lot of things. Some things I don't use, some things a lot of other people use. It's always great to learn about new modules and how people are using modules to solve different problems. And every once in a while you run across, oh, this module does this thing. You're like, I've been banging my head for 3 years trying to figure out how to do something like that. And you find something like that. So I hope running through this list really quick might have done that for some of you. I don't know what if lunch is ready, or if anybody has any other modules they want to share that they find useful that probably wasn't in the list.
There's about 1,000.
There's about 1,000 useful modules.
Specifically, within meta tag, you use schema meta tag to extend that module, and it will allow you to add schema.org JSON ID arrays to That's a big one.
The schema.org.
It's schema meta tag is what it's called.
Schema meta tag, that's included as like a submodule in meta tag.
No, it's separate.
Oh, right. It has a testing dependency though. I found that out yesterday. But yeah, I'm not too familiar with the schema.org stuff, which I probably should look into. There's a few other modules I've used here. There's an editor file module with just like video embed field. It's editor_file. It's a button that allows you to upload and attach files into the WYSIWYG. So if somebody wants to put up a PDF, boom, there it is.
There's classy paragraphs for the drop-downs for adding classes, paragraphs like you're talking about.
Yeah.
You do that by machine name. Pretty handy.
Classy paragraphs to add classes to your paragraph blocks, is that right? Yeah, I remember back in the day when you had to define a field to define the class.
Yeah.
And do that and then set up your theme.
If you want to do something like you have a paragraph where you have an image that's on the left, right, center, or something like that, and you can just have your end users will have a drop down, and that drop down can define what class is that.
I like module filter. It's a must-have.
Yeah, module filter, yes. You go to the, and I think that works also on the permissions page too.
Yep, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
So-
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I think there's configuration options where you can turn that on or off. But yeah, module filter, I think it's module_filter, gives you a nice little search bar to search through your module list so that you can find modules to turn on and off quickly and easily. And then it also has support for searching through all of the permissions, because you know how big that permissions page can get if you have a complex site.
Also does the updates page too.
The updates page. That's a good way to do that, because then you have, that only shows you what's enabled. Right? There's a module called markup, which is a field type, which is kind of helpful if you're trying to build node forms that need a little bit more markup added in between. So it's just a field that displays whatever markup you can find, which is, you know, it's kind of nice to be able to like, okay, I can add like, maybe I can add like a little image or something that shows people how to do something or whatever. You know, it's like the help field or the help text on steroids. So. Override node options is nice. I don't know if that allows you to set permissions on those other things on the node field. So things like author, pub date, probably your alias and stuff. You know, all those things that are in the tabs or on the side. That's just kind of meta information that's about the node. You can get granular permission to allow certain roles to be able to manage or edit that stuff. So we use that a lot when, say, we're migrating a site and, you know, there's only like 100 news items, but so we don't want to write a migration. But then, you know, you can just go in and add your news item, copy paste, and then change the date so it's in the right order. Yeah.
I have a good one for Drupal 8.
Yeah.
Configuration override warn.
Configuration override warn.
Warn. Yeah. So when you have stuff set manually in settings.php in Drupal 7, you would see those reflected in forms in the UI, but in Drupal 8 you don't. So you don't know if they're.
You submit the form, it says everything's fine, but it's not. It
but
didn't change.
it's still being overridden silently. So
Yeah.
it throws up a warning that says, hey, it's being overridden. You won't see this change being reflected, but it's just to warn you. The things you type in here won't matter.
Configuration override warn.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's really helpful for like production sites when someone keeps changing config and nothing actually changes.
Yeah, it's kind of a silent error. That's good. I was talking about the crop API before, being able to select crop areas. There's a module that uses that called focal point, where the user can define, okay, what is the point on this picture that really needs to be there and crop in such a way that we don't use that. So you can click on somebody's head and it won't crop their head out. So that module I think just dropped off the end of the list since the last time I did the presentation. And then there's another one called image widget crop. So if you have an image field and you upload an image, it gives you a nice little user configurable cropping tool right there. So if you have a certain aspect ratio, I think it can constrain it to that. All right, so I guess lunch time? People?